What is up, YouTube? Welcome everyone to a deck profile of a deck that we actually built together on stream 2 days ago. And I'm going to show it off right now. And if you are interested in the entire in-depth deck building process, it's going to be available on the Plus channel. Originally, I was going to make it a more in-depth main channel video, but the thing is like 4 hours long. The deck building process for this thing was very long, very in-depth. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, in how we got to this list, go ahead and check out the link in the description for the Plus channel entire deck building process video. Without further ado, I'm just going to show you the deck, tell you what it's meant to do, meant to be, and it is going to be Earthbound Runix. I'm going to show you one example combo at the end of the profile on what the deck is trying to achieve. For all kinds of other stuff, once again, go ahead and watch the other video because it's going to be way more in depth than this one. In general, the Earthbound prisoners from Maze of Millennia are pretty damn good cards actually, and they lock you into fusions and synchros for the rest of the turn, which is something that happens to go really well with Runick synchro decks because you only really care about fusions and synchros. The cool part about this deck, because it is locked into fusions and synchros, we don't play SP and we don't play Typhon. So if you're looking for a potential budget option, this might be the one for you. Now, how good am I expecting this deck to be? Obviously, I've built it for the first time. I haven't really put it to the test yet. I think it's got potential. We're actually about to record a match against Pack with it, so that's also going to be on the main channel in a little bit, so look out for that. I think it can be a solid option moving forward. I'm not expecting it to be like a tier 0, tier 1 kind of strategy, but viable strategy on a budget, I'm pretty convinced it can be. For the Earthbounds, which are also quite cheap by the way, because they didn't really get any high rare cards in Maze of Millennia, you're playing 3 Earthbound Prisoner Stone Sweeper, 3 Earthbound Prisoner Groundkeeper, and 3 Earthbound Prisoner Line Walker. Earthbound Prisoner Stone Sweeper is a pretty cool card because you can just discard it from your hand to add a level 3 or lower Fiend Tuner from your deck to your hand, which both of the other two are. On top of that, you can also special summon it from your hand if a card is in any field zone. So this is even a potential level 5 non-tuner extender, which mainly comes in handy if you draw multiples, because if you only draw one, you're going to use it to search most of the time. But if you draw multiples later on with your Runick Fountain maybe, then you can special summon it from your hand as a free extender. Earthbound Prisoner Groundkeeper is the most important card of the archetype because on summon, normal or special summon, it summons a level 5 or lower Earthbound from deck or graveyard. You can summon Line Walker, which is most likely what you're going to do, but you could also summon Stone Sweeper if you are looking for a non-tuner rather than a tuner. So it's a level 1 tuner that just tutors out, special summons one of the other two from deck or graveyard. And then we got Line Walker, which is a level 3 tuner, which on summon adds you an Earthbound Prison or a Harmonic Synchro Fusion from deck or graveyard to your hand. So the core plan is normal summon Groundkeeper, special summon Line Walker, search a spell card, which gives you 2 tuners on the field with a free spell card in hand off of just your normal summon, and then you get going with summoning your Runix from the extra deck, which they act as your non-tuners, right? This engine gives you the tuners, the Runix give you the non-tuners. We play 1 copy of Vision Resonator because Stone Sweeper is a generic Fiend Tuner Searcher. You can add Vision Resonator if you already have your other things, which gives you just more tuner extensions and a good discard for Hugin potentially as well, because you can just pitch it and get a Crimson Gaia. The reason why it's okay to play only 1 is because Crimson Gaia can actually add from the graveyard, so you don't need multiples of these to make sure you have search targets. There's 1 copy of Jet Synchron here, which is not part of your mainline combo. Obviously, you access this via Axel Synchron in the extra deck. This is in here because if you start with Line Walker, just Line Walker, no access to this guy, because you have 1 less tuner, you have to change up your lines slightly and go for Axel Synchron. We've talked about this a lot during the deck building process, but basically in order to have a good game plan when you just draw Line Walker, I wanted to try out the Jet Synchron, and I think drawing it is honestly fine because pitching it for Hugin is good because it gives you access to another tuner later on. So that's why the 1 Jet Synchron is in here. And then the last remaining monster is Triple Ash Blossom. We ended up having 5 non-engine slots for this deck, which I decided 3 of them to be Ash Blossom. We were between putting Drolan Lockbird into the main deck. The reason why I chose Ash Blossom for this format is because we are not in Phantom Nightmare format yet. You know, Fire King Snake Eye is not everywhere yet. So I think it's okay to just side deck the Drolan Lockbird. Also, the Ash Blossom is a level 3 tuner, which is in theory better than having no tuners whatsoever. So it helps you a little bit with not bricking. So that's why I chose to include it. But you could still decide to play Drolan Lockbird over over it. And that's the entire monster lineup. For the spells, we have a wonderful space for 18 Runick quick play spells, because the Earthbound package is actually rather slim. We still get to play 5 non-engine and 18 Runick quick play spells in this entire thing, which is pretty cool. And we're still keeping it 40 cards, as well as obviously the 2 fountains, which gives you a total of 20 Runick cards, which is just amazing for consistency. Then we've got 2 talents, which is the remaining 2 non-engine. So your non-engine for this deck is going to be 5. You could even turn it up a little bit by cutting a Runick if you wanted to. I think talents is in a pretty good spot right now, because a lot of decks don't make the craziest end boards going first, like Fire King variants and stuff like that. Those are decks where going second, talents is going to be a huge board breaker, and it's going to be possible to outgrind them with Runix and some sort of talents or Ash in the mix. So I like talents a lot. And it helps a lot when you get drolled, because this deck is going to be a little bit weak to droll. You can summon your Hugin in the draw phase, but even your line walkers and stuff like that, you're going to do some searching and drawing in the main phase. So if you do get drolled and you can still pass on Fountain after looking at their hand with the talents, and you can still make like a Baron, I'm pretty sure that's still okay. And we're even going to side deck the 3rd copy for going first into Droll and Lockbird, so I like it that way. We've got 2 Crimson Gaias with the Vision Resonator. The reason why I decided to go with 2 Crimson Gaias is because I want the Crimson Gaia itself to be a good draw. And if you only play 1, if you activate the Crimson Gaia to fetch the Vision Resonator, that Vision Resonator now doesn't have a search target, which just means you're missing out on some free value, which makes it feel a little subpar to draw Crimson Gaia, in my opinion. So that's why I wanted to start trying with 2, because if you draw Crimson Gaia, activate Crimson Gaia, search Vision Resonator goes to the graveyard, you get another Crimson Gaia, which you can use as follow-up, discard fodder for something like Coral Dragon. I just think it's good to have that free value in here, and it's not a bad draw at all. We have Earthbound Prison, which is our only search target for Linewalker, which is going to be the first odd choice, I feel like, to a lot of people, because the main way that people are playing this deck currently is with Harmonic Synchro Fusion, which is another option of Linewalker, which allows you to Synchro and Fusion at the same time. And I understand that that card is pretty cool. We've talked about that card a lot during the deck building process before eventually deciding to just play the Earthbound Prison. What this card does is it allows you to gain a second normal summon for your Earthbounds, but it also lets you, when you go second, when you activate it, you can choose a monster your opponent controls, and while this card is on the board, those monsters' effects are negated, which makes it actually an okay draw going second. You can bait like a Baron with it, you can lock down an SP before starting to play, those kind of things, as opposed to Harmonic Synchro Fusion being a pretty much brick going second. The extra normal summon comes in handy as well, because you can extra normal more tuners when you go off. I just think in general it was a more sound concept, but the most important reason for not playing the Harmonic Synchro Fusion is because we have, during deck building and discussing with Twitch chat, we found some lines that played around Nibiru. I'll show the standard line in a little bit, and then you will see why the extra summon off of Harmonic Synchro Fusion would make you play into Nib a little bit more, or like a decent bit more actually, and that's why I decided on this. And then the last card in the deck is Black Garden, because we are playing Garden Rose Maiden as our go-to Synchro 5. Once again, I'm going to show you the combo if you want to understand how I reached the conclusion that this was the best possible way to play the deck. I encourage you to check out the deck building process, because it was a long back and forth discussing different options, and I couldn't really summarize it to you in like 30 seconds now as to why we ended up playing this version of the deck. Just know Black Garden is a card that you get for free from the deck or graveyard with Garden Rose Maiden, and it allows you to revive either your level 3 tuner or your level 5 non-tuner, because the level 3 tuner has 800 attack and this has 1600 attack. This creates 800 attack tokens. You can blow up all the plants on the field to bring back a monster from the graveyard with the same attack. So as soon as you give your opponent 1 token, you can blow it up to bring back your tuner, which is the main way of using Black Garden in this deck, and it's part of the main combo that I'll show you in a second. And that is the main deck. Another cool thing about this Runick version is that you have a couple of engine requirements that you want to search, right? Like Black Garden and Earthbound Prison. Both of these are not that bad to draw, because both cards that access these two can add them from the graveyard as well. So what you can just do in order to not lose out on any free value, if you draw these, you just pitch them for Hugin, and then you add it back later as if nothing happened, which is pretty cool when it comes to having those sort of engine requirements in your deck. Making sure that you can at least discard them without losing out on any value is pretty important, in my opinion. All right, the extra deck. which is the hardest part when building this deck, and another reason to not include Harmonic Synchro Fusion. The extra deck is incredibly tight. We've settled on 2 Hugins, 2 Garys, because the standard combo can go through 2 Garys very easily, 1 Sleipnir, because you can also make level 10 synchros with the level 1 tuner relatively easily, but it's also an incredibly strong card in the grind games. We've got a Baron and a Chengying, which we can consistently make both of on the first turn. We play a Croc, which is very important for random game states. It doesn't always come up in the first turn combo, but there is specifically one combo that we discovered in the stream. If you only have 1 Runick quick play spell, there's a combo where Charge Warrior and this draw you 2 cards if you only draw 1 Runick spell to make sure you get into more. And then we have a level 8, which is Omega. We play Ancient Fairy Dragon for some neat field spell interactions, like you get the Earthbound Prison for free, you use it to normal summon an extra Earthbound, and then you blow it up with Ancient Fairy to get a second fountain for free, which is pretty cool. You can also special more tuners from hand, like this special summoning out another Line Walker from your hand makes Chengying or Baron. This special summoning out the level 1 tuner from your hand makes Omega, which is pretty neat. It is also a dragon, which is important because Garden Rose Maiden revives dragon synchros from the graveyard. Coral Dragon is also a very vital part of the deck because it comes up in pretty much any combo, and it's a dragon synchro as well. You can bring it back with Garden Rose Maiden for repeated synchro tuner access. Stardust Charge Warrior, which is not part of the main combo line. The main combo goes into Coral Dragon, but Stardust Charge is still a very important option. This one, funnily enough, makes it so that the Earthbounds actually do something even if you don't draw a single Runick, which is very unlikely. But in the event that you draw no Runicks, you can normal summon your level 1 tuner, the Groundkeeper, special summon Stone Sweeper, and make Charge Warrior to at least draw 1 card and try to draw a Runick with that. Not Tri-Edge, because Tri-Edge does not draw a card if it's being made with a level 1 and a level 5. So in this deck, it needs to be Charge Warrior. Then we have Garden Rose Maiden, which is a very important centerpiece. This card has 2 effects. When it's synchro summoned, or special summoned rather, you can add Black Garden from your deck or graveyard to your hand, and you can banish it from the graveyard to revive a Rose Dragon monster or a Dragon Synchro from the graveyard, right? So what you do is you summon Garden Rose Maiden, search Black Garden, synchro into Coral Dragon, keep playing, synchro the Coral Dragon off, and then banish the Garden Rose Maiden, bring the Coral Dragon back. You have 2 level 6 tuners that way. The Black Garden also revives another tuner, so basically Garden Rose Maiden enables you to have like infinite tuners in this deck. Then we play the Axel Synchron for the level 5 synchro plays where we don't have Groundkeeper, we only have Line Walker. The Garden Rose Maiden is a little bit awkward because you don't have more tuner access, so you go Axel Synchron instead to send the Jet Synchron to keep playing that way. And 1 Martial Metal Marcher, which is here for a very specific scenario where you summon Hugin in your draw phase, and then you normal summon Groundkeeper, and your Groundkeeper gets impermed, veilered, ashed, whatever, to the point where you can't access any high level synchro. So you need this to get out of that situation. It's not part of the main combo line, but if that ever happens, your Groundkeeper gets negated, you're stuck with a level 1 tuner and a level 2 non-tuner, and if you don't have a level 3 synchro for that, you can't clear your extra monster zone. You're kind of stuck there. So that's why this is here. Side deck, we've got Read Rolls, which I think are very good in this format, and I even thought about main decking it. The only reason why I chose Ash over Droll is because it's a little bit more flexible in terms of the matchups, like it's slightly better against something like Rescue Ace, and it also is a tuner. I think in the next format, after Phantom Nightmare, when Fire King Snake Eye is everywhere, I think Droll and Lockbird might as well be a main deck card. We've got 3 Ghost Bells, which is mainly in here for Labyrinth. Labyrinth in general gets a huge boost from transaction rollback, so having Bell and Ash doesn't hurt. You can also side it into Fire King matchups. It's decent into Runick decks as well if you want to prevent Fountain. I think it's a solid card overall right now. Phantasme, I don't think Phantasme is that great right now. The reason why I kept Phantasme, or I added back in Phantasme, I was thinking about cards to side deck in for the Vanadium matchup, because with that few hand traps, obviously the Vanadium matchup is going to be tough going second. The problem really is there is no one hand trap besides Droll and Lockbird that really stops Vanadium if drawn alone, because we don't play enough hand traps to consistently draw multiples. Something like a Nibiru alone is not going to stop the full Vanadium combo because they go Baron way too early. So you really need to pair Nibiru with like a Veiler or an Imperm to stop Vanadium, and we really can't afford to play this many cards for Vanadium. The only real solution that I could think of was playing Phantasme to try and draw Droll and Lockbird if they go for the Light Heart early. I don't know if this is the ideal solution. Some people suggested trying Sphere Mode or Lava Golem, which I think you could try it. The problem is without your normal summon, you're not going to do much on that turn. You're going to sphere mode the opponent's board, and then you just hope that next turn they are not able to win the game, and then you can maybe outgrind them. I haven't tested that approach, but you could. We got 3 Cosmics, which are good for mirror matches. Runick decks are decently popular again, but also Fire King, you know, hitting Fire King Island is pretty good. So you got those, and they're just very good against random matchups. Like even going first against Vanadium, this card is pretty good because you can hit all the field spells. Going first in a lot of matchups, Cosmic Cyclone is quite good. We've got a Talents and a Called By for going first. Drone and Lockbird is huge in this format. I want to have the maximum amount of cards to be able to punish it when I go first. I think if you draw one of these cards against the Drone and Lockbird, you are completely fine. You can resolve your Hugin in the draw phase. In the main phase, you play into Drone and Lockbird. You either Called By it and keep playing like nothing happened, or you just set up like a Baron, Talents their hand, you pass on Fountain, Baron, some amount of Runix. You have knowledge of their hand. You've taken away their best card. They lost the Drone and Lockbird, so they're playing with 4 cards against Fountain and Baron. I think that's fine. That's the plan when it comes to Drone and Lockbird. And then the last card, just decided to throw in a Feather Duster because it covers a lot of matchups. Like, it's pretty good against Rescue Ace going second, pretty good against Vanquish Soul to get rid of the trap card. Generically, you know, Duster is a good 15th card because it's just gonna randomly pop up and win certain matchups. That's the entirety of the deck. Once again, if you want to understand more, rather than just, you know, copying the list or whatever, if you want to understand more about the philosophy of this deck, make sure to check out the longer deck building video. For this one, I'm going to show you the quote-unquote standard combo, which involves Groundkeeper and 2 Runix. And you might ask yourself, okay, what happens if I only have 1 Runick? What happens if I draw Linewalker instead of Groundkeeper? What happens if my Groundkeeper gets hand trapped? All of those scenarios were something that we thought through in the other video. They're all included in the other video. This is why some cards are in the extra deck like Axel Synchron, Metal Marcher. But just so that this deck profile is as informative as possible, I'm going to show you the standard combo line and also explain to you why and how you play through Nib with that line. Okay, so you're going to normal summon Groundkeeper. Well, usually you would go Hugin in the draw phase. Without hand traps in the equation, the order doesn't matter, but typically you would do this in the draw phase. You would discard a random card from your hand to search the Runick Fountain. Then you would go normal summon Groundkeeper and special summon Linewalker. Linewalker is now going to fetch the Earthbound Prison. This is 3 summons so far, and this is important. If you were to activate Harmonic Synchro Fusion now, you would be at 5 summons and you could get nibbed immediately, which would be horrible. Instead, we're going to summon a Garden Rose Maiden here, which on summon fetches us the Black Garden. And we still have that other Runick in hand and 1 other card that we haven't discarded yet. If you had activated Harmonic Synchro Fusion, you would have like a Dragostapelia here. You would get nibbed and you wouldn't basically have anything to really go off of. You would have to activate Black Garden, summon a Runick, and bring back the Linewalker. You could still play somewhat, but I'm going to show you how this way it's a lot better if you do it without the Harmonic Synchro Fusion, because you're going to make a level 6 Synchro here, which is now your summon number 5, and it's a Coral Dragon. I don't know why they would, but if they were to nib you after this point, you get a draw from the Coral Dragon, and you have the Coral Dragon in the graveyard, which is a huge deal because Garden Rose Maiden brings it back. But obviously they wouldn't nib you here. If anything, they would nib you here because you're going to continue by activating Fountain. You're going to summon out Geary, and you're going to draw 2 with the Fountain. And if they have a Nibiru, they have to Nibiru you here, because obviously you were going to make Baron now, right? And so if they Nibiru you here, you draw a card from the Coral Dragon, and you have Garden Rose Maiden to bring the Coral Dragon back, and you have Black Garden to bring back the Linewalker, so you still have a lot of tuner access, even if you get nibbed here. So this is why this combo is Nibiru proof, essentially. This is what we worked out in the stream to be the best way of approaching some sort of line that is not hurt by Nibiru, because you're just obviously going to make your Baron here, draw a card off of Coral Dragon. So this is the super baseline combo, which puts you at Baron, Fountain, 6 cards in hand. However, this is usually not where it would end. It's going to depend on what hand you have. We're playing 18 Runix. We've drawn 4 other cards. Let's just assume one of them is a Runick that we haven't used yet. And this is where you'll really see what the point of the Black Garden is, just to show it off. So one thing you can do here is activate the Black Garden, activate the Slumber, and this is where the second Geary comes in handy. Because we are able to overwrite our Fountain with the Black Garden, we can immediately add it back with the second Geary. The Black Garden is going to give our opponent a token that we can immediately blow up to bring back the Linewalker. And here, the world is your oyster. You can do a lot of things. You can make an Ancient Fairy Dragon, activate your Earthbound Prison, which at this point, if you have drawn any other Earthbound monsters, you can normal summon them. Like if you have another Groundkeeper, you can make Ancient Fairy, use Earthbound Prison to extra normal summon another Groundkeeper, use Ancient Fairy to blow up the Earthbound Prison to get another free fountain, and then turn the Groundkeeper plus the Ancient Fairy into an Omega to hand rip. You can also, if you have another Line Walker, extra normal summon that, turn the Ancient Fairy plus the Line Walker into a Chengying. You also can still Garden Rose Maiden to bring back the Coral Dragon at any point, so even this already makes a Chengying. So at this point, it is impossible to show you a sort of standard combo because 100% depends on what you have in your hand. This will change the way how you can play this because you can just special summon it from your hand as a level 5 extender. This, like I said, is a level 3 tuner at this point that you can summon out. You can summon out this. You can even summon out a Jet Synchron because Ancient Fairy can special summon it from your hand. The world is your oyster, and the extra deck is trying to accommodate for that. That's why we have so many different levels in the extra deck. That's why the extra deck was so tight. You're just gonna try essentially to make as many of these guys as possible. Keep in mind, it is not possible to recycle your extra deck in this deck. The only thing you can do is, and this is why I chose Omega as the level 8. If Omega hits the graveyard, you can recycle a Synchro or Fusion monster. Another cool thing with Omega is if you leave it on the board, you can place the Garden Rose Maiden that you banished back into the graveyard to use it again on the next turn. I'm pretty sure it's a pretty cool Runick combo deck. It has a line that plays through Nibiru. It has sufficient combo potential, and the extra deck, I think in terms of space, it just barely works out. I think this should give you a basic idea of what you're trying to do with the deck. Like I said, there are countless other lines, like what do you do if you draw Line Walker and not Groundkeeper? What do you do if Groundkeeper gets stopped and you're stuck with Groundkeeper plus Hugin? Here, what do you do if you only have one Runick and not two because that combo required two? All those questions are answered in the deck building video. That's the reason why we have some other cards in the extra deck like this comes up in those scenarios. This, and this. You can try figure them out yourself, or you can just hop on the in-depth deck building video on the Plus channel. This is the first time we're doing this form of content, you know, building a deck in its entirety on stream. Let me know what you thought of this concept. Let me know what you think of this deck. If you try it, feel free to leave your feedback down below. In general, I hope you enjoy this sort of way of doing content, right? Of TCG deck building content, especially if you've also watched the in-depth deck building video on the other channel. Let me know over there how you enjoyed that. I know people on stream told me they liked the stream a lot, but I'm curious whether it'll perform on YouTube as well. I hope this was helpful. I hope this gave you an idea of what you can do with the Earthbound Prisoner cards from Maze of Millennia, and I hope you found it insightful. And until then, thank you for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to leave a like on the video, leave your feedback down below, subscribe to the channel, all the good stuff. You know what to do. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for watching, YouTube, and goodbye.